evening, everyone, and welcome to our inaugural podcast, NFC Preview, with your host, Minister Jonathan Simmons of Real Talk Sports Show, and Vincent W. Turner, a.k.a. Mr. Football, of 1120 a.m. and 104.5 The Peach. 1120 a.m. The Score is the home base of 100 Yards of Football. And we're going to bring on Mr. Football now as we get ready to talk to you guys about the NFC South for 2017. Mr. Football, it's that time in the state of Georgia and all around the country. Football is back.
How you doing this evening, Mr. Simmons?
I'm doing fantastic, kind sir. How about yourself?
Just ready to talk some football. It's been a long time, sir.
It sure has, sir. Mr. Turner, I'm not going to get too emotional, sir. I'm going to try to make this quick and to the point. But believe it or not, sir, it was approximately 10 years ago that you and I started. My dear departed mother, the late, great Dorothy Simmons. I was running an errand for her and heard your broadcast on your former station, my current station, WIGO. And after a few weeks and months of speaking and meeting, we launched the Real Talk Sports Show, and the rest is history. So it was just, when I thought about it today, kind of made me go back, got a little emotional, but that's all out the window now as we get ready to talk a little football. But, again, we appreciate you, man, and appreciate us being back together again, doing what we like to do, which is talk sports, especially football.
Well, like I said, man, it's always been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and I think about those times back in, 10 years ago that we have had a lot of ups and we had a lot of downs, but it seemed like we turning the corner a little bit in this business. And one thing I can say, excuse me, sir, one thing I can say is that neither one of us gave up.
How about that? That's something about still doing it. That's right. That's right. And it is exciting times here. A lot of stuff going on in our city that we are based. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are based in Metro Atlanta. As I mentioned earlier, Vincent Turner, a.k.a. Mr. Football, does a weekly broadcast from 9 a.m. to 12 noon on 1120 a.m. The Score, Atlanta's newest 24-hour full-time sports radio station. And they're also simulcast on 104.5 The Peach. And, Vince, if you can let people know where they can also stream your show online, please.
Yes, sir. They can go online and stream me at 1120thescore.com.
Well, guys,
and then, of course,
you can check Vincent. Also, I forgot about your Facebook page, sir. You can check them out and follow them on Facebook at 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio Show.
Absolutely. That's the Buckeye work is done over the last few years. When you go to the page, you see a lot of football, a lot of current events that's going on in the sports world. Of course, the NBA Finals between the Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. But what we try to keep it mostly football from a collegiate to a professional standpoint.
Vince, we want to give you some congratulations as well. I believe you guys have reached a milestone in terms of number of followers on the page. I think you guys just recently exceeded 21,000 followers, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir. We did that about 2 months ago. Basically, we started, man, it seems so long ago, about 4 years ago. And it's amazing how the Lord has really blessed us. And I remember the first day the page went up, I think at the end of the 24-hour period, we had like 10 likes. And now, like you said, it's grown over to 21,000. But it's been a lot of hard work, though. A lot of nights and stayed up to about 3 or 4 in the morning putting content on the page. That hasn't been easy.
Well, the one good thing about it, man, is like I said again, you guys have, certainly kept your nose to the grindstone, and it pays off because, again, once you get over, anytime you get in the 5 figures, 10, 15, 20,000, and now you guys are at 21,000, that is a major accomplishment. So, again, kudos to you and the team over there. Well, like we mentioned, we're going to be talking NFC South since that is our home division, home of the defending champion, Atlanta Falcons, and we'll talk about them last in the broadcast. But first, we're going to talk about a team that just 2 years ago, Vince, everybody was talking about was a toast of the NFL. They had the number one ranked player in the league, MVP, ranked number one in the NFL top 100 list, and found themselves squared off against a man he called the sheriff, as Cam Newton took his Carolina Panthers 15-1 record to the Super Bowl, which they, of course, lost to Denver. But now, man, after a really down year they're now looking to regroup and once again challenge to be a powerhouse in NFC South. What are you looking at that team so far from what you've seen early on, especially off-season moves? Let's talk about those first.
The first and foremost important part is that Carolina did something differently this year. They went in and they brought some players that was formerly part of the organization, the Julius Peppers and Captain Merlin, which I thought that was a real good move. Guys, it's been the mainstay of the franchise over the years. But the most important thing to me personally is whether or not Cam Newton is healthy. Last year he took a beating. He just, I think, had rotator cuff surgery about a couple of months ago, and the offensive line was in shambles. But they went in the offseason. I think the biggest question outside whether or not Cam Newton is going to be healthy this upcoming year, they gave $55 million to Matt Khalil, who's been a pretty good football player with the Minnesota Vikings, and his brother Ryan is the starting center. Because, you know, in this league, we can talk about all the skill players we want to talk about. We can talk about the great receivers. We can talk about the great running backs. But football is still basic to me. You win the game at the line of scrimmage. And I think they really hurt Carolina. Like I say, Michael Orr out of my hometown, 901 in Memphis, Tennessee, didn't play in 3 games last year, had concussion problems. Trey Turner struggled in the offensive line. Mockley, they could never get that going. And like I say, Cam Newton took a beating. And they got out of the gates. After 6 games, they were 1-5 on the season and ended up 6-10. And most of all, when I say off season last year, I knew in my heart, being an avid football fan and being a guy that loves this game, that they was going to regret not signing Josh Norman, taking the franchise tag off him and not giving him his money.
Well, no doubt about it, man. A very bizarre move, and even Josh Norman said at the time he couldn't understand it. No one in the football world understood it at all, and you saw the lack of having him there was a huge factor on the stepping back of a defense, which had been one of the NFL's best just 2 years ago when they made that run to the Super Bowl. Now, you talked a lot about them bringing back guys. It's almost like Back to the Future. As a matter of fact, Luke Kuechly talked about that in some of his remarks. And if you guys want to find out more about that, you can go to Panthers.com and go ahead and watch that video from Luke Kuechly when he talks about the fact that it's different when you bring a free agent in that you don't know. But in the case of bringing in Julius Peppers, like you mentioned, here's a guy that, first of all, is a veteran player and a guy that already played with Carolina, so he kind of knows what to expect. He's been on winning teams through most of his career, so, you know, again, it's going to be a big move. And Khalil, it's going to be kind of interesting having your brother on the same team. You know, sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad, but hopefully these 2 guys can mesh and really anchor that line to give, Cam Newton some more time.
Well, like I said, when you look at the season and what happened last year, they got out of the gates. They ended up losing their opening game to Denver. Then the offensive line problems started to come down in the second game of the year to get out to a 1-5 start. But during that time, Cam Newton was taking some shots. Don't fool ourselves. And he was getting beat up. And then he took a lot of people feel like, including myself, he took a step back as a passer. He only completed 52% of his passes, which he's not really a great thrower in this league. But when you look at the percentage points, I think he was 7 points off completion rate that he's had been over his career. And like I said, Kevin Benjamin really was up and down. Devin Futures up and down. Ted Ginn Jr. Had a lot of drops for him. He's moved on to New Orleans. Then you look at defensively, we talk about injuries. As I said, Michael Ward didn't play but in 3 games last year for him to start right tackle. But Luke Kuechly missed the last 3 games of the year, was in and out of the lineup with concussion problems. Their D-line had some problems. Charles Johnson, who's been a big guy there on their D-line, was in and out of the lineup. So they kind of like had a lot of things that happened to them where they took a step back for their Super Bowl run the previous year. And then when you look at their secondary, to me, when they allowed Josh Norman to walk, they ended up starting 2 rookies in James Bradbury and Darryl Woodley. And they improved at the end of the year. But remember this, early on they struggled mightily. And we could go back. You do a lot of work with the Atlanta Falcons, City with Joe Sports, that were Real Talk Sports. You was up and close and personal when you saw Julio Jones put 3 deals on him. So, when you know, you start 2, let's say, rookies now. not veterans, in your secondary after you allegedly went from having the best corner in the game in Josh Norman. It's certain players and certain occasions and certain instances that you can overcome as a football team, but you cannot lose a guy talent like Josh Norman and expect to continue on top if you start two rookies out green in your secondary. And to me, quarterback is getting hit, Cam Newton, and he got frustrated and you saw what happened. You ended up going from a Super Bowl team to a 6-10 team. But I would say this. I think Carolina had an excellent draft. I think they took the blueprint, what the Atlanta Falcons are doing. They've gotten a lot of more offensive pieces for Cam. I think Christian McCaffrey was going to be an excellent piece because he's a guy, he had a lot of touches at Stanford. A lot of people said that he might have a lot of miles on him, but remember this, Christian's father played in the league, so I'm sure he knows how to take care of his body. But Christian McCaffrey is going to give you a dimension of a fast guy that can play in the slot. And he's going to take some care from Jonathan Stewart, who had a pretty good year, if you want to say, maybe the biggest price of Carolina's offense. And then in the second round, you turn around and you, to me, your biggest, most important pick was Curtis Samuel out of Ohio State. A guy that's a legitimate 4.31 guy. I think he had the second fastest time at the combine. Now, to get him to go with Christian McCaffrey, now you got a whole different look. Looking at the Carolina Panthers, you got some speed now within the offense. And then you got Taylor, Moton, tackle out of Western Michigan, I believe, a guy that's got a chance to come in and play a lot as a rookie in the offensive line. And then Deshaun Hall, defensive end out of Texas A&M, who played opposite of Myles Garrett. But a lot of people said in the last couple of years at Texas A&M, he was a better football player than Myles Garrett. So I think Carolina's made some strides, and I think they're going to be a pretty tough team in the NFC South.
Well, since you mentioned Christian McCaffrey, we got a chance to listen to some of his remarks here. We'll let you guys take a listen here at his comments talking to reporters after his very first day in the OTAs. Let's take a listen to Christian McCaffrey.
What was it like being out there the first time? Oh, it was awesome. Just putting the jersey on, being out there with your teammates, and it was a blast. Had a lot of fun. Getting the playbook down, so I was just excited to be out here.
What can you get out of a day like today?
Just learn. This is a big learn day, and then once you learn it, earn it. And I think that's the biggest thing here is getting the plays down, making sure that when you come out here, there are no questions. All the questions are in the meeting room, and so when you come out here, you can play fast.
What are you trying to show these Mike Shule and the offensive coaches?
Just trying to be me, just show them that everything I can do. Just try to do what I can to help the team win.
There is, Vince. He summed it up pretty much the same things that most people have been talking about. This guy is looking to come out there and make an immediate impact. You listen to the buzz that's going around the camp. Luke Kuechly was talking about the guy's going to be a nightmare. And I think that's going to be an added weapon. That's going to be a great help, for Cam Newton. Because, you and I both know, watching running quarterbacks, what's the one thing that running quarterbacks really need to have? That outlet or that safety valve. Well, now, instead of just having to rely on Olsen all the time, you now have a guy, McCaffrey, that you get him the ball in space, Vince, some big things and some good things can happen. So I think Carolina's offense is going to be vastly improved going forward in 2017.
Yeah, and I didn't mean no disrespect to Greg Olsen, who's been probably one of the better tight ends in the game, maybe in the top 5 for the last 4 years over there in Carolina. But to me, you got your player, McCaffrey. You heard McCaffrey. You heard what he said. He said he wants to be there. He wants to learn the system. He wants to play on a winning football team. He came out of a very excellent program at Stanford. Can't say no more about his head coach, David Shaw. And then we look at it in his sophomore year, the young man had more yards in college football since the great Barry Sanders did it at Oklahoma State. So, you get a football player that's going to be very productive, but to me, can really fly. And now you put that together with 2 big physical receivers and Kevin Benjamin. There's rumors he's kind of a little bit overweight right now, so he's trying to get back in his weight. There was rumors that he's up to about 270. But now I heard that they're really trying to work with him to get that down. And we know what Kevin Benjamin can do when he's healthy. He had a knee injury in his second year, but he had a pretty good outstanding rookie season. And you got Devin Funchess out of Michigan. He started around into a pretty good receiver. But all that's going to be determined on the offensive coordinator who took a lot of heat last year, Mike Shula. And you're looking at Mike Shula now, you kind of got what you wanted. You're looking at Carolina. You got two big receivers now. You got some speed within the slot, and you got a running back that can take it coast to coast. I think they're going to be back. My only question, I said earlier in this conversation, how healthy is Cam Newton? Because he took a beating last year. He had rotator cuff surgery a couple of months ago. How is that? You know yourself, Jonathan, there was a lot of people, and you close to, you know, his father, there was people that was questioning him, maybe him taking out on hits. He got shaken a little bit last season and might have lost his confidence.
Well, no question. That was one of the things that even his coach talked about, and I think kind of threw people off when he said that, hey, they were more concerned with having his confidence coming back. And I think that, you know, again, from taking all the shots, some of them illegal, we all know about that. It really made it tough on him. Well, look, guys, we're going to take a quick break here and get reset. And, Mr. Football, we're having a little bit of a transmission listening to you. So you might want to reset the call and come again. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the NFC South Preview. Vincent Turner, Mr. Football from 100 Yards of Football, and yours truly, the minister, Jonathan Simmons from Real Talk Sports. Keep it locked right here. We'll be right back.
Attention promoters, event organizers, and committees. If you're looking for a place to have your next big event, you must check out the C Room Multiplex. The C Room Multiplex cordially invites you to book your next artist or to host your next big event at the C Room, specializing in the following areas: CD release parties, showcases, fashion shows, movie premieres, birthday celebrations, wedding receptions, banquets, pastors' anniversaries, special events, and more. At the C Room Multiplex, we also offer catering and decorating packages. For more information, call us 678-823-5124. That's 678-823-5124. Or visit us on the web at croomatlanta.com. That's c-roomatlanta.com. The C Room is Atlanta's premier Christian entertainment venue. The C Room, 4013A Jonesboro Road, Forest Park, Georgia. Mention this ad for special pricing.
The entire store's on sale up to 50% off right now. Want to save even more? Redeem your Super Cash now at Old Navy and OldNavy.com. Better hurry, though. Tomorrow's the last day. Excludes clearance, gift cards, register lane items, jewelry, today and 2-day only deals.
And that's right. This is me, Minister Jonathan Simmons, and we are back. NFC South Preview with yours truly, the minister, Jonathan Simmons, and Vincent W. Turner. Vincent is the lead host and producer of 100 Yards of Football, heard every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on 11:20 a.m. The Score right here in Metro Atlanta. You also can listen to them on 104.5 The Peach and also streaming online. Remember, follow them on social media, 100 Yards FB on Twitter. Well, Vince, let's go now and take a look at another team that has also had a little bit of a step back, but a team that is always a threat because they have the guy with the golden arm, and that's New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. They lose a huge component in their offense, one of their guys with some blazing speed, and now looking to, it seems to me, by adding on Adrian Peterson to try to give you a more balanced look at the offense. How do you think the Saints offense is going to look now with this new emphasis on the run?
Well, I mean, when you look at New Orleans, and they've had a great run. When you look at Sean Payton and Drew Brees, they've been together, 11 years? And you look what Drew Brees has done since he's been in New Orleans. I'll be honest with you. When he first got to New Orleans, I never even could imagine he would be a guy throwing for 4,000, 5,000 yards in a season. And what I've been more impressed with the Saints and with Sean Payton and Drew Brees, that they've did it with different personnel. When Drew got there, Mr. Brees, when he came on, signed from San Diego, they done it with Reggie Bush, they done it with Marcus Colston, they replaced them, they get Darryl Sproles, they make Jimmy Graham really reliable, they put the tight end back into the offense. They've done it with so many pieces. So losing Brandon Cooks maybe hurt them a lot, but you got to remember last year the young man they took out of the draft in 2016, second-round pick out of the Ohio State Buckeyes, Michael Thomas, turned out to have a great rookie season. That being said, we know New Orleans is going to score points. As long as Drew Brees is healthy, as long as Drew Brees can throw the ball, and New Orleans has did a very excellent job in doing that. They've always had a great offensive line when you look at it. Even though he was hurt a lot last year, Teron Armstead, I know you like me to say this, out of the SWAC, what's they call HBCU, Arkansas Pam Bluffers came into this league, and now a lot of people saying he's one of the top 5 offensive tackles in the game. But when you look at Adrian Peterson, and I'm looking at New Orleans this year, I'm looking at a team that's really upgraded based on the fact they lost Brandon Cooks. But, man, you bring back a very outstanding rookie receiver, and Michael Thomas, who had an outstanding year. Willie Snead is one of these guys. I'm going to say again, in New Orleans fans in the free agency, remember last year they had a guy named Lance Moore. Remember how good he was? They went out and got Ted Ginn Jr. They drafted let me get his name right, Ramczyk out of Wisconsin, who was rated the top, really tackle in the draft. They just got tremendous offensive firepower. And last year, what they have, I think Drew Brees threw for 5,028 yards. And on the year, he had 37 touchdowns, 15 INTs. So that being said, when you face the Saints, you better be ready to score. But to me, we all know what we've been saying for the last 3 years with them. Under Sean Payton, he's won 7-9. But what's been their Achilles heel? Their defense. And I think they made some strides this year defensively. Remember last year they lost their 2 starting cornerbacks, Devin Burrow and P.J. Williams. Then they lost the reserve and Damian Swan, local guy out of here in Atlanta, Georgia, Decatur, by way of the university. So when you lose 3 starting defensive backs there, your starters on the year, you're going to suffer as a football team. Then last year, the rookie who they took in the first round, Shelton Rankins, didn't get to play till the end of the year. But he played some pretty good football with him. But I think this year, look what they did in the draft. I think they got 2 guys that's going to start for them in the secondary. I think Marshawn Lattimore, to me, was the best available corner. They got him with the 11th selection in the first round. Then they turn around in the second round. They drafted, I think, a very good football player, Marcus Williams out of Utah. To go with, I think they got 2 pretty good safeties now, Von Bell and Kenny Vaccaro. Then you turn around, and I think maybe it was a surprise to me, but we talk about them getting Adrian Peterson. But, man, they got Alvin Kamara, and you should know about him, Minister, because you saw him play over at Norcross, and you know what he did at Norcross. Young man was player of the year here in the state of Georgia, and the most highest classification, 6A, went down there to Alabama. Things didn't work out. Went to junior college 1 year, came into Tennessee, and we know he can ball, as we say here in the state of Georgia. So that being said, New Orleans just need to take an upgrade defensively. And I think they went out there and made a lot of changes. They're bringing over A.J. Klein from Carolina to start in the middle. Monte Teo, we all know about his days at Notre Dame, was out there in San Diego. They're bringing him in. I think they really drafted a good football player in the 3rd round in Trey Hickson to go along with what they have right now. Cameron Jordan has always been a quality DL for them. Then you're looking at Shelton Rankins, now is healthy. They now, I think, have had a real disappointing news because Nick Fairley was their best D lineman last year, but this year he signed for some guaranteed money, $14 million, but right now they don't know if he's going to play because he has a heart condition, and they're really waiting on to see how that's going to work out. But we know about the Saints because that's our rival here in Atlanta, and basically New Orleans is going to be the same New Orleans that they've been with Drew Brees in his 11 seasons. They're going to score points, they're going to have a lot of yards, and they're going to move the football. Now the question is, for them to take a real good, strong move in the division, how good is Marshawn Lattimore going to come in and play at the corner? How good is them bringing over A.J. Klein? He's going to be able to certify them in the middle of their defense. How good is the young man Trey Hickerson, who they took out of Florida International with the 3rd pick, who I think should have been a 2nd-round grade? how good is he going to be able to mesh in, especially if Nick Fairley's not ready to go?
Well, I think what New Orleans may also be taking a look at here, you talked about having Kamar, having Adrian Peterson, and then, of course, just using that running attack to hopefully aid the defense. Because when you look at those numbers, you put out some big numbers there about Drew Brees, but the realities are if you look at the quarterbacks that went to the playoffs last year, Drew Brees was the only one of those guys that threw over 600 attempts. If you take a look here at Drew Brees, this is unbelievable, Vince, when I look at this. He had 673 attempts, 42 attempts per game. Okay, the next closest guy, the only other guy in the playoffs that had that many attempts or close to that was Aaron Rodgers, who had 600 attempts overall, and he averaged about 38 attempts per game. So I think that what they're trying to do, man, is really get to the point where they can now slow the game down, take the pressure off of Drew Brees, and maybe get him down under that 600 attempts and turn those attempts into rushing attempts. And maybe that might by keeping their defense off the field some.
Well, like I said, I think when you look at that, I think that could be kind of deceiving. I think New Orleans, that's what they do, because even though you brought a good stat now that Drew Brees had 600 attempts, but Mark Ingram had his first 1,000-yard rushing year. So I think let's face reality here, Jonathan, man. New Orleans is a type of team, and offensively, they're a team that passes to set up the run. Remember, you don't see Drew Brees going down the field a lot with deep balls. Drew Brees, to me, they have a medium-range passing game. What I mean by that, they have Michael Thomas, whoever's been at that X-Y position, running them 15-yard slants, having Willie Snead now being Lance Moore running underneath routes. Remember when Darryl Sproles was with them, they used to, Drew Brees to throw to him relentlessly out of the backfield. I think it's more or less, that's just who they are. They've been there like for 11 years, and they're not going to change. And I think they brought Adrian Peterson in, number one. If he's able to go, they're probably going to slow down a little bit, as you said, maybe take some pressure off Drew Brees. But I think most of all, they want to see is Adrian Peterson still got the explosion. Can he still get coast to coast? It wasn't really, I think, very expensive for them, because remember, Adrian Peterson is coming off a season where he didn't play, I think, but in one game for Minnesota. He was injured. But because if they was really thinking that they was going to go real with a power running game with Adrian Peterson, why would you take Alvin Kamara in the third round? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, no, this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying, this is what I'm thinking. Okay, you have Mark Ingram already, as you mentioned, 1,000-yard back. You bring in probably a guy that's going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, and then you bring in Kumar. So what that is telling me is you got three stud running backs. One guy in Ingram, probably your back, and Peterson, your backup today, but you got Kumar in the wings looking to come in here. So that's letting me know, hey, we're not looking necessarily, maybe not this year, but 2-3 years down the road, we can't expect a 40-year-old plus Drew Brees, even though no disrespect to Tom Brady, he did it. You can't expect these guys to get out here in the NFL and continue to sling the ball around 600 or 700 times. And again, when you look at other playoff teams, only Aaron Rodgers was the only guy that had over 600 attempts at the quarterback position for playoff teams. All the rest of those guys had numbers somewhere around the mid to high fives, which means you have to get to that point where I think you're slowing the ball down. And I'm not trying to say necessarily it's just power running. I agree with you. Adrian Peterson has shown that he's not a bad receiver out of the backfield. Ingram has shown the same thing. So I think that you still, see the short passing game, but there's no question in my mind that they're looking to slow that game down just a little bit. And in regards to how Adrian Peterson looked, well, it's interesting because Sean Payton talked about his workout. And speaking of Sean Payton, let's take a listen to a little bit of his comments after the opening round of training camp, or I should say OTAs here at New Orleans. Let's listen to Sean Payton.
This guy's a very competitive player, explosive. I think, sorting through the combination of he and Mark, I think that'll take care of itself. We've typically been a team that has had multiple backs. There is that part of every competitive player that wants to prove that he can not only still do it, but still do it on a level that is rare. And I think that, that feeds when other players see just how he works. I think that's a good thing.
Well, this is Sean Payton talking about the competitiveness of Adrian Peterson. And, again, if you guys want to find out more information about that, go to Saints.com. You can see the interview where they talked about NFL.com, actually, when you see that interview, they talked about the fact that he went in and saw Peterson doing one-leg jumps at close to 40 inches. So clearly Peterson still has something left in the tank, and I think New Orleans' offense is going to be even more powerful. And here's, to add to your point about the pass off the run, think about how potent that play-action pass will be if you have a healthy Adrian Peterson in that backfield. Because the New Orleans, man, NFC South is looking stronger and stronger, sir.
Well, like I said, I'm not surprised. I mean, regardless of New Orleans has had in their offense, they've proven to you they're going to move the football on you. And we didn't even mention Kobe Flingman, who they brought over from Indianapolis, a very talented tight end. Had some injuries last year, didn't play a lot. He's coming into camp healthy. Josh Hill is another special talent on their football team. I mean, they're going to keep offensive talent, man. And I said, as long as they keep Drew Brees upright, Drew Brees is going to do what he do. Now, you brought up a good point. He can't do this forever. So that's why I think Sean Payton has came under a lot of, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat, but the people in New Orleans have felt like that, hey, you've kind of neglected the defensive side of the ball. It's time for you to make something happen. And right now, being 7-9, if they get any type of quality play, I think Miller Pack defensive effort, then I think they could be a team that can really be back up in the mix in the NFC South. Because they're going to score points, brother. Regardless, they can have anybody back there running the football. The system that Sean Payton has put in with Drew Brees has been very excellent over the years. You can look at the yards. I think Drew Brees has became the 12th quarterback to throw over 70,000 yards in this great league of the NFL. And that's not a lot of people out there throwing the football, man. And the thing that's impressed me the most, he has not done it with an elite receiver. He's done it with multiple people. And that's saying a lot. And he's really never had an outstanding running game. And so right now when Mark Ingram has been there 6 years, and Mark Ingram had his first 1,000-yard season last year. And to be honest with you,
look at Drew Brees' numbers, man, you hit it on the head. His numbers are ridiculous. You look at that year he had last year, brother. If he was with a winning team, I mean, now that he's thrown the ball 673 times, as you mentioned, 37 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. But, Vince, I want you to listen to this. His completion percentage was a staggering 70% on almost 700 attempts. That's just insane that you could throw the ball that many times and be that accurate. So, again, man, I just think that they're trying to maximize and drip every throw that he has left in his body, and I think you're going to see him run the ball more. I think that he's going to be an even more deadly passer, which is staggering when you're completing 70% of your passes because, again, you did it last year with Mark Ingram, but if you can get something out of AP close to what he had before, yeah, the Saints, man, to bring a whole new dynamic to that NFC South. No doubt about it.
But for them to take the next step, I think we got to look at it realistically here. It's going to be on their defense. And I forgot to mention they did bring over Alex Okafor, a pretty good football player from Arizona at the defensive end position. But we could be really astonished at Brees' numbers. But for New Orleans to really slow down the other teams in the division, they got to play better defense, man. And Matt Ryan lit them up last year. Jameis Winston had a field day on them. It wasn't their offense, man. It was their defense. And it was in their back seven. They have not really had great linebacker play. They haven't really had great secondary play in the last few years. And that's contributed to, I don't know, maybe people not really judging talent right. But I think this year, based on the fact them taking Marshawn Lattimore, who I think was no doubt the best corner in the draft, I think that's going to mean a lot. But he's going to get baptized real quickly because twice he's going to have to face, we call him the man down here in Atlanta from Foley, Alabama. And he goes by the name of Julio Jones.
Julio Jones, the Jet. Well, listen, guys, we're going to take a little quick musical break. But you tune in here to the NFC South Preview with Mr. Vincent Turner, a.k.a. Mr. Football from 100 Yards of Football, broadcasting on 1120 a.m. and 104.5 in the Atlanta area. And yours truly, the minister, Jonathan Simmons, from Real Talk Sports on WIGO 1570. Keep it locked right here for more great football talk. All right, we are back here with more of the NFC South Preview. Mr. Jonathan Simmons and Vincent W. Turner, a.k.a. Mr. Football. All right, Vince, we want to touch base here with another team that actually has some ties a little bit to our Atlanta Falcons because of their head coach, Dirk Cutter. Tampa Bay, another team who is showing why the NFC South might be the best division in football. Big improvements for them as well, especially, I would think, the chemistry and the learning curve for their quarterback, who's going to be the next big star quarterback, Jameis Winston.
Well, I think you was and I don't want to get nothing started here on the podcast tonight.
Let's get started on the podcast. Why not?
You kind of was disrespectful. You didn't mention Mike Smith, former head coach, the defensive coordinator now.
Well, I left it up to you, Mr. Football, because you are Mr. Defense, former defensive back at Arkansas, University of Arkansas. So we let you talk about Mr. Mike Smith.
I think we think we need to mention Mr. Smith, but you look at Tampa Bay, man. To me, they made strides in the offseason. Man, love the acquisition of Deshaun Jackson to go along with Mike Evans from an offensive standpoint. Doug Martin, hopefully he's coming back healthy this year. We know what type of Tampa Bay team offensively can be when he's healthy. I like the running back they drafted out of Boise State. One is, I think, heroes, Jerry McNichols. I think it's going to be a pretty good player just in case Mr. Martin doesn't really come correct and he's maybe dealing with issues. Because remember, he got suspended for, using those kind of drugs over the counter. Then you look at Tampa Bay taking O.J. Howard, who they say might be the best tight end that's came in this league in a long time, and they putting his talents up there with the likes of Kellen Winslow. You should know about him. Keith Jackson, John Mackey, putting him on that level. But I think when we look at Tampa Bay, and then defensively, I like the acquisition bringing over Chris Baker from Washington to go along with Gerald McCoy. I love the two linebackers, man, Levante David and Quan Alexander. I like to see what their stats have been for the last 2 or 3 years. They've been two of the linebackers in this league that's had over 130 tackles, I believe. And then their secondary with Brent Grimes and Vernon Hargraves are pretty good. With that being said, it's all about Jameis Winston, man. This is the year whether or not, for me personally, does he become a quarterback that takes the next step and puts his team in the playoffs and wins a playoff game. And when you look at Jameis, his first 2 years, he's thrown for 8,000 yards, 57 touchdowns, but what alarms me, he has 42 turnovers. And he's very loose with the football, and he's been sacked 62 times. I think it's going to be critical in whether or not we can say Tampa Bay has improved to be a playoff team under how he's played and how he's progressed this season. This is a huge season for him and the Tampa Bay's organization and head coach Dirk Cutter, if you ask me. I'm just saying.
Well, no question. You look at it, man. You hit it on the head, but he got a three-headed monster there now. I think that he really has got a point where he's got Evans. Everybody's saying O.J. Howard has potential if he doesn't get injured to be a Hall of Fame tight end. And, of course, now you got some speed on the edge with Deshaun Jackson. As a matter of fact, let's take a listen to Mike Evans as he talked about some of the new chemistry, especially, I should say, the improved chemistry with him and Jameis.
Guys are playing with a lot more swagger and having a lot more fun out there. You know, we're used to Dirk now. You know, I've been used to him. This is my third year with him. Good feel.
Coach just said your chemistry with Jameis 2 years ago, not as great as it is now. Can you expand upon that?
Oh, well, just time. You know, and our chemistry was actually good. I just was playing, you know, but, you know, it's just time. You know, I learned how he's going to throw the ball. He has a great touch, and he understands, like, where I want the ball. You know, we're just going to keep on improving on that with time. Man, yesterday we had a nice little play. I know it's just OTA, but it was a cool play, and I just started back practicing a couple weeks ago, so it was cool. You know, he just looked at me, like just looked, and then we knew what it was. So, you know, when you get that continuity with a quarterback, it's a good thing.
Well, I mean, certainly, man, sounds like a lot of confidence. Sounds like that maybe Jameis might take a little page out of a lot of great quarterbacks do. They get into that rhythm. They play a little extra time with their favorite wide receiver because Mike Evans is definitely sounding like they got something going on.
No, like I said, I like their football team, what they did in the offseason. I don't think when you look at a team that's very talented, that could cause some real havoc in the NFC South, that could be their team, if we want to say, could supplant the Atlanta Falcons as a team of the division, it's Tampa Bay. I like what they did, like I said, in the draft. They drafted Jared McNichols. I just mentioned him. They went out. They got Kendall Beckwith out of LSU, another big linebacker that can run. They got Chris Goodwin out of Penn State. All you got to do is go back and watch last year's Rose Bowl. He led USC up 8 receptions, 194 yards. My thing is going to come down to Jameis Winston. We don't have to say it anymore. He's the guy, the face of the franchise. They took him number 1 2 years ago. This is what a lot of people are saying. This guy could be the next great thing as far as quarterbacks in this league. He's in his third year. He's done everything from really playing well the position, over 8,000 yards. But the thing that concerns me, and I think why people are not going to put him in their greatest status right now, 42 turnovers, man, and 62 sacks. That has to be really cut in half for Tampa Bay to take that next step. And it's not going to be about the defense. It's not going to be about the offense. It's going to be how well he play under that center. Well, and that's just my opinion. I mean, you can galvanize about him, and you can look at his stature, you can look at his height, and I know how you do it, Jonathan, but you can look all around, the man, that was the main knock on him. Remember I told you a couple of years ago, if Jameis Winston comes into this league and knows how to control and not be loose with the football. It's that simple. And if he cuts down on his turnovers, Tampa Bay is going to be a playoff team. That's just my opinion.
Well, there's no question you always have to improve. You look at last year, he did do a bit better, 28 touchdown passes, only 18 interceptions. We say only 18, but that certainly is much better than the year before. He did have over 4,000 yards passing, and as far as ranking passing overall in terms of yardage, he was right behind Andy Dalton and Russell Wilson, a guy who did make the playoffs. So I think, again, if you hear what they're talking about Mike Evans, now you have additional weapons. You think about it, a guy like Jameis Winston, who can sometimes be loose with the ball. We talked about before when a quarterback is a guy that moves around the pocket, that, takes broken plays. He needs a guy in the outlet. So can you imagine trying to stop this team now with you got a guy 6'4", 6'5" on one edge, you got a speed burn on the other edge, and now you have a guy that's got almost like a combination of both speed and power with O.J. Howard. Yeah, man, Tampa Bay offensively, if they can keep Jameis Winston upright, they're going to be a handful to deal with in the NFC South. But right now, the reigning kingpins of the NFC South and of the NFC are Atlanta Falcons. And if you look at them, what is your opinion on what they did in the offseason? They really, when you're coming off a Super Bowl appearance and you got a bunch of young guys on your team, you think you don't have to necessarily add too many more pieces. But it looks like the Falcons, according to everybody's opinion, made the right moves in the offseason. What do you think about the Falcons going in to defend the Dome, or I should say now defend Mercedes-Benz Stadium?
Well, I think with Atlanta, I told you I liked it when they hired this man 2 years ago, Dan Quinn. I thought they hired the best coach in their franchise history. I really did. The guy came out of a winning situation in Seattle. He had success at University of Florida as a defensive coordinator. I think the biggest question is the movie Hangover. You could talk about the loss in the Super Bowl. You can say you the brotherhood. You can say Matt Ryan is this. You can say Kyle Shanahan should have made a former offensive coordinator should have called a running play. But we're not going to see all that to the first preseason game, how this team comes out and whether or not they over the hangover. I think that's just basically it. Are you over the loss? I mean, what I saw, I think that they've had a very successful offseason. I think Dan Quinn, to me, is coming into a Bill Belichick status. Think about this. They lost their football game simply because they got tired defensively in the second half. What they was on the field for, 90 plays in the Super Bowl? What did Dan Quinn realize? 93, okay. What he realized he had to do? He had to get depth in the defensive line, more people that can rush the passer. He went out and got Todd McKinley. Then he realized this, that for me to be more strong and probably improve a little bit in the run defensive game, because remember New England had a couple of runs in that game in the Super Bowl. He went out and he gets the number one free agent defensive tackle, Dontari, let me get his name right, Dontari Poe.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, out of Memphis, Tennessee, by way University of Memphis, Kansas City Chiefs. He the one that made Justin Houston all that money because of his play early when he got there in Kansas City. He went out and got two very strong pieces to be part of that defense that's already starting to get real well at the end of the year. Then they signed Desmond Trufant, and arguably Desmond Trufant is one of the top 5 corners in the game. Then with the second pick they had in the draft in the third round, they get one of the fastest linebackers in the draft, Duke Riley. So, to me, Coach Quinn knew what he had to do, and he went in and improved on that. They got 7 starters coming back on last year's Super Bowl team that's under 26 years old. They're a very young football team. Matt Ryan, he's 31 years old. He still got a lot of football left in him. Julio Jones is just, a young 28 now? Think about he's starting to get into his prime. Muhammad Sue is really, to me, was the most surprising football team because he gave them a legitimate number 2 receiver. And we don't have to talk about the running game with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. That's really stable there. If you want to say anything might come of that, is that Devontae Freeman might want his money. It might be a little distractions, but I don't see that football team having that because what they did in the 5th round in this year's draft, they drafted who I thought a young man who was definitely a 3rd-round grade in Brian Hill, who had over 1,800 yards at Wyoming last year. And is a big back, about 6'1", 225, and runs about a 4.48. Just go look at his game film and look how he ran very violently up there in Laramie, Wyoming. So he's made every right move. I'm talking about Coach Quinn. And to me, if you want to say there's a weakness, okay, they lost Chris Chester, they right guard. I heard you on your show. I ain't gonna try to throw you on the bus, Minister. But you were talking about Jake Matthews. But I think Jake Matthews got hurt a little bit at the end of the year. I think he's gonna still end up being a very good football player, not like his father now. I'm not saying in no Hall of Fame status, but I think Jake Matthews is going to be what you want out of a left tackle. That's why they extended their option. Make a long story short, they still got the best team in the division, hands down. From 53-man roster, I like everything they have. They got a lot of depth in the D-line. They went out. They got players that fit their system. Jake Crawford, who's a former Dallas Cowboy, is going to come in here and fit in real well. Rasheed Heckman is starting to play real well. I think if this is contract year, he's going to take a next step. Their linebacker, of course, real strong. Deion Jones, Devontae Campbell, 2 rookies. They're going to be in their second year. Now you took Duke Riley. They got a very fast defense. Jalen Collins improved a lot last year. Robert Alford. They went to the Super Bowl, Jonathan, without their best corner, man. That's coaching and developing. And these are players that Dan Quinn. Those are players that Dan Quinn, coaching and developing. And me and you been here. I've been here 20 years, and I've seen a lot. And you've been here 13, 14, you not far behind me.
Not far behind you, right. That's right.
What has been probably the biggest thing with the Falcons over the years, even when they had the chosen one, number 7, you know what I'm talking about. There was never consistent. They put 1 year, good year together. The next year they take 2 steps back. They put one good year
together. Now hold on a second. Now wait a minute. I don't want to correct you, Mr. Football, but I'm going to now remind you about the guy you told me I didn't mention. Let's not forget that Mike Smith was the first Atlanta coach to get them not only to multiple winning seasons consecutively, but also got them in playoffs multiple years as well. So we don't want to, just kind of make it sound like Mike Smith was a bum. I mean,
right.
They put that team together. They had a magnificent run between 2009, 2012, culminated, unfortunately, with multiple bad losses in postseason, including the first collapse right here in Atlanta when they were up 17-0 over San Francisco and ended up losing that game 28-24. So, I mean, we've had good teams here, but to your point about Dan Quinn, this is the first time that we've had a guy to really have a system of, as like they like to say, fast and physical. And speaking of Dan Quinn, he's bringing in his boys. Steve Sarkisian is one of them, and of course, he's there now. So let's listen to Steve Sarkisian as he talked to us in the media.
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, we have 2 really electric tailbacks, and they are bad matchups on defenses, and just to making sure that we're putting those guys in the best position to be successful, whether it's separately on the field, whether it's being on the field together. I think that was one key, whether it's in the run game, the pass game, just to ensure those things. Really looking at the efficiency and the things that they did well and trying to dig into, okay, can we even improve upon that? Can we get better on third down? Can we get better in the red zone? Is there a way to get Julio more touches in the red zone and finding those matchups? And so there's a lot that goes into it. And then there was personal player development. I think Dan really made a point of, I really want to find ways to get each individual player 1% better. How can we do that? And finding and digging into each player, meeting with each offensive player individually and saying, hey, this is an area I think you can improve. I appreciate everything you've done and how you did it, but here's one thing I think you can improve upon. And so all of that, I think, set the stage for these guys understanding that I was coming in trying to improve, not just stay the same. And it's worked out really well.
Now, he said something there, Vince, about trying to improve. You notice that he hit on red zone, but he talked about third down efficiency. Let's go back and take a look at the Super Bowl. Third down efficiency for the Falcons. If you want to take out a glaring issue, 1 of 8 in third down conversions, only 12%. So,
well, I'm not gonna, too much there. I'm not gonna read at it in too much there. I mean, that's, to me, Jonathan, that's kind of like taking a shot at Kyle Shanahan because you had the number 1 offense that scored the most points in the league, and you was up 28-3. So I'm not gonna get too much of 1-8 on third down. Because you're looking throughout the season, there were so many other things that contribute to them losing that football game, if you ask me. But, again, I think at the end of the day, I don't think you too much care for Kyle Shanahan. I don't mean put your business out there.
Wait a minute.
But I know
wait
you cover the
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Because
okay.
you cover the fact. I mean, okay, we got through the show, and we haven't had an argument tonight, and we haven't had a disagreement. But here you go again. And you want to bring up 1 for 8, and the man took Matt Ryan to another level, and where they had the number 1 offense that scored the most points in the league. Matt Ryan had the greatest season he ever had that would lead to an MVP. But I'm not going to get off on that. I think with Steve Sarkisian, I think that was a very excellent move. 2 things for me. I'm not worried about his past issues that he's had. It seemed like some other stations here in this local areas kind of brought that up, but I'm going to say 2 things here. He was one of the nation's top passers back in 1996. He played under Lavelle Edwards, and he was an outstanding quarterback at BYU. And then if you want to really have any more staple to his career, go back to those great USC teams in the mid-2000s. They had Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Steve Smith, Dwayne Jarrett, Mike Williams, Herschel Dennis, Lendale White. And those teams for those 3 years offensively in that great USC run led the nation in total offense and averaged close to almost 38 points a game. And you know who was the offensive coordinators of that team? It was two of them.
I think it was some guy named Sarkisian.
Yeah, and who's the other guy?
Lane Kiffin.
So that's all I need to know right there. You're getting a guy that knows a lot of offensive football. And then I'm going to say this. You know a guy that went to a Washington program, and Washington was in the dumps and turned them around and made Jake Locker an NFL first-round draft pick at the quarterback position. And what I'm reading and what I'm understanding is that the Falcons players really like Sarkisian. Matt Ryan is ecstatic. So what that's going to tell me is that the Falcons are going to roll offensively, and they're going to have one of the top offenses again in the league. The key to me and understandably for me is whether or not defensively they could take another step on the back seven. And the back seven is whether or not their secondary can play at a high level. And if you have that, then I think Atlanta will be a strong candidate to repeat and play up in Minneapolis in this year's Super Bowl.
There's no question, man. If you're asking me, am I at all negative against the Falcons, I got to tell you no. I mean, because all the indicators point to this team being able to repeat and to really be the type of team they were offensively last year.
No, you love the Falcons. I mean, I wasn't saying you was negative. You love the Falcons. I'm just saying that I've been knowing you, and this is what I made our great relationship over the years. We had a lot of ups and downs, me and yourself personally, and that's why we brought this show back here on podcast, and hopefully we'll be very successful. But remember this, my man, I know you, and I know you don't have too much liking for Kyle Shanahan. I'm not going to put your business out there. And you wouldn't have brought up that going one for 8, but he's in San Francisco now, John. Hey, I have to get that in there because one thing about it, we brutal this with each other. You talking about an offense, man, that led the league of scoring, bro. Come on, brother.
I'm not taking nothing
and you
away.
Bring up they going 1 for 8 on third.
Well, I have to, but here's the thing. No one, see, everybody's looking at this Super Bowl and saying, and I'm actually trying to be in Kyle's defense. Everybody's telling this guy, I should have ran the ball. Listen, and that's why I said what I said about Jake Matthews. Okay, I like Jake Matthews. I think that he was one of the best drafts that the Falcons had by bringing him in here. I'm not saying anything, but I'm saying that if you look at the key plays, the play before the sack, and then another play they had where they had a first down and they didn't convert, in both cases there were holding penalties on Jake Matthews. And see, here's what I look at. Only thing I can look at is the gold standard, which is Bill Belichick. And see, Bill Belichick works real simple, bro. He don't care if you're all pro. He don't care what you are. If you get in that Super Bowl and don't perform, dude, you're not going to be his friend. Remember Asante Samuels? Remember him? He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He dropped a surefire interception that allowed the Giants to keep the ball, and Eli threw that pass. Where was Asante the next year? Cut.
But come on, John. Asante wanted to get paid, though, my brother. Asante Samuel went and he wanted to get paid. He got paid.
If he caught that ball,
he would have got paid in Philly, man. Come on now. Come on,
I'm going to say his last thing. Speaking of Philly, I'm going to say his last thing. Okay, LeGarrette Blount was basically, he was kind of put on the back burner, right, in that game for New England. All of a sudden, you see all these moves New England making was basically LeGarrette Blount. He only had about 30 yards. Who was the big guy for them out of that back? He was the other back, a guy that we really hadn't heard much about. Okay, where is LeGarrette Blount now? Right. Okay.
Well, look, that's another situation. Wait. That was a situation where the LeGarrette Blount salary, I think salary couldn't fit under the cap at the time because LeGarrette Blount wanted more money. But I understand what you said about Belichick. Belichick is a genius. I mean, he's a guy that has ability.
Well, Vince, believe it or not, we actually run up the end of the podcast time here, so we're going to have to wrap it up, buddy. But again, as usual, outstanding show, being back with you, talking what we like to do best, which is football. And before you go, let people again know how they can find out more about you and be able to tune into your broadcast.
Well, yes, sir. Like you said, every Saturday morning I'm part of a new station out in the Atlanta area. It's 1120 The Score on the AM side of the dial, and it's 104.5 FM. If you want to stream us live nationally, you can. You go to the website and go to 1120thescore.com, and you'll see the streaming icon. You can stream us live from 9 to 12 every Saturday. You can go to our Facebook pages, which is 1120 The Score, and then we have another page, which is 100 Yards of Football at Sports Talk Radio. And then you can also, excuse me, that Mr. Simmons is going to be handling our great podcast. He's going to put it on bestmrfootball.com, which is my personal website.
All right, guys, you know how to follow me. Check me out on the web at realtalksports.net. You also can follow me anywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Real Talk Sports 7. Tune in every Tuesday night, 8 to 9 p.m. on WIGO 1570 or www.wigom.com or mobile on the free TuneIn radio application for the Real Talk Sports Show. And if you can't wait to WIGO 1570 right around 4:20 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can check me out on the Daily Dose of Sports. All right, everybody, on behalf of me and Mr. Football, we say God bless you and have a great night. We're grateful to have you with us.
This is your first fish.
I got one.
Father's Day, a day to say thanks to the most important guy in the world. This year, get him what he really wants at Cabela's Father's Day sale. Don't miss our 8 a.m. doorbusters, 5 hours only on June 10th. Get $50 off Cabela's exclusive Masterbuilt Sportsman electric smoker and earn $25 in Cabela's bucks when you spend $150 or more in store. Come to Cabela's Father's Day sale, in store and online at Cabela's.com.
This is your first fish. I got one.
Father's Day, a day to say thanks to the most important guy in the world. This year, get him what he really wants at Cabela's Father's Day sale. Don't miss our 8 a.m. doorbusters, 5 hours only on June 10th. Get $50 off Cabela's exclusive Masterbuilt Sportsman electric smoker and earn $25 in Cabela's bucks when you spend $150 or more in store. Come to Cabela's Father's Day sale, in store and online at Cabela's.